tuned in to The Andrew Lawton Show.
Universities and colleges have been the ones that for years have loved looking at international students as being this giant cash cow, because a domestic student who's from Canada will pay, I don't know, $7,000 a year in tuition. And then you get these international students that are paying upwards of $50,000, $60,000. And the universities love it. And they have lowered their standards to make this happen. And it's Canada and Canadians that have suffered. And it's, by the way, the students themselves who are suffering, because when the students come and they can't afford a place to live, they can't find a job, they actually are not able to devote what they need to their studies because they're focused on just trying to deal with this bill of goods they've been sold, which is not what the country has offered them. So no, in fact, the most pro-immigrant position you could take on this is to say that Canada has profoundly failed on this. So we'll talk about this more tomorrow. Like I said, this was a fresh admission from Justin Trudeau just this morning, in fact. But to return to where we started yesterday, the big carbon tax demonstrations took place across the country. Kris Sims is the Alberta director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. She joins us every Monday, but we bumped it back with yesterday being a holiday at True North. And Kris, always good to talk to you. You've been very good at not letting the Alberta government off the hook here, because just as the federal carbon tax went up yesterday, so too did the reinstated Alberta fuel tax. And I've got to say, I mean, I've got a lot of time for Danielle Smith. You and I have both crossed paths with her many times over the years. I've yet to hear a compelling reason for why all of the things she's saying about the federal government don't apply to her government and the gas tax.
Yeah, same here. In fact, I was almost tempted to phone you about it just offline, because I'm stumped. It's one of those weird situations where she's such a rock star when she's taking on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. She went right into the Lion's Den there in Ottawa and did a great presentation at committee. And so, like, she's absolutely right to take the Trudeau government to task and say, scrap this carbon tax altogether. It's a huge waste of money. But then, like, puzzlingly, in Edmonton, here at home in Alberta, we got our fuel tax, our provincial fuel tax, increased all the way back up to its full strength of 13 cents per liter of gasoline and diesel. And to your point exactly, like, this is nothing personal. Big fan of a lot of what Premier Smith is doing. But policy-wise, I can't square this circle. This does not make any sense, both from a fiscal standpoint or from a communications standpoint. Fiscally, they did the right thing when they fully suspended the fuel tax here in Alberta for a year, Andrew. It saved Albertans around $1 billion, having it at zero for an entire year. Then they brought it back up to 9 cents per liter just at the new year, the start of 2024. But then they went all the way just yesterday and brought it all the way back up to 13. And so this is strange that they're doing this, considering the fact that they have a balanced budget and there's still places for them to cut. Like, why are they handing mega millions of dollars to an NHL team to help them build their hockey rink in Calgary while you're nailing drivers of everyday, jobs here in Alberta for filling up their vehicles? And just communications wise, I don't get this part. Why would they Bigfoot their own victory party? Why would they overlap their provincial fuel tax increase with big bad Justin Trudeau's carbon tax increase? Just comms wise, I don't even understand this play. Why not leave it at 9 cents per liter and kick the can ahead to June or July?
There's this old line that you hear that there is just one taxpayer, and that federal spending, provincial spending, municipal spending, at the end of the day, when you have one pocket, and when that $1 you've earned comes out of your pocket and goes to government in the abstract and in the grand sense, it really doesn't matter which one. I mean, I used to like Jack Astor's back in the day, before the HST in Ontario. They used to have the line items on the receipt that you'd get. It was like Chrétien's tax and Dalton's tax, and then it was like Harper's tax and Wynn's tax. And I liked it, actually, because, it told you, they both have a role to play, but at the end of the day, the HST was a transparent policy, because a tax is a tax is a tax. And this is the thing. I mean, to try to distinguish between these two is just from a messaging perspective alone flawed. But also, it means that any criticism she's making to the federal government, criticisms with which I agree,
Yes.
can also be pointed back at her government. And I just don't get that. I mean, she's been asked about it somewhat. Have you gotten a sense of how she rationalizes it, at least?
I haven't heard her direct response many times, to be fair. And I'd like to hear it, frankly. Again, it was her birthday yesterday. I like so much of what she is doing. To be totally fair, they've balanced the budget here, Andrew. They wrote it into law that they must keep spending increases restrained below the rate of inflation plus population growth. They're paying down the debt. They're putting money away for a rainy day. Like, those are really good things. But it just pains me when they turn around and do nonsensical things like jacking up the fuel tax back up to full strength. And I can hear some people right now within the UCP saying, well, technically, a barrel of oil is getting up there in price. Okay, fair enough. When former Premier Jason Kenney first announced this policy, yes, it was tied to the price of a barrel of oil. Once the price of a barrel of oil got up to, I think it's $90 per ton, $90 per barrel rather, they would then drop the fuel tax back down. But it was not getting to that range when new Premier Smith, fully dropped it down to zero for a year. She did so for affordability reasons, and also to take some of the sting out of the federal carbon tax. And this is where I think, this is my hunch. I don't know for sure. I think what's happened is what's often called dome disease in Alberta. And that's where a politician who's elected really grassrootsy, very connected to the average person, gets put into office there in Edmonton. And then the bureaucrats who work in the department of the Treasury Board, they get in there. And those types who don't run for election, they don't need to talk to average voters, they love trying to find new taxes. It's those sorts of pointy heads that keep suggesting a PST here in Alberta, for example, or new fees on all sorts of stuff so they can take in more money. Because those folks are always looking at that revenue column, how much money government's taking in. Fair enough. But politicians need to stand up to these people and say, you know what? No, read the room. We're not going to increase taxes. And when you combine it, Andrew, with I think it's just this morning, where NDP Premier of Manitoba, Wab Kinew, came out and said, yeah, I'm extending my fuel tax holiday. So folks in Manitoba are saving 14 cents per liter of gasoline and diesel. Zero. They're paying zero provincial fuel taxes in Manitoba. We got full freight 13. I don't understand.
There's a great quote from Milton Friedman, which is, to be honest, I don't love I like my version of the quote better because his is like more clinical in nature. But the effective meaning of it is that you shouldn't try to elect the right people. You should try to create the circumstances where even the wrong people do the right things, which naturally leads us to Manitoba, which has an NDP government which has not been great on the carbon tax. They've not been terrible. They've been very wishy-washy. But even in Manitoba, their government is extending this fuel tax holiday.
That's right. And I've always loved that modified quote you use because it actually gives people a lot of hope, even outside of taxes. So everything that's gone on the past 4 or 5 years or whatever, it can get people down pretty fast. And I really like that method and that way of looking at it. I remember you telling me that years ago and it cheered me right up because then that means that we can fix stuff. We can create the conditions where even politicians who are, lukewarm still nonetheless do the right thing. And in this case in Manitoba, again, no knock on Wab Kinew. He seems like a very personable person, actually. They've, I guess, created the conditions where they're doing the right thing. And so we're really happy to see that. And strangely, this is where things are a little bit Twilight Zone. Here in Alberta, we're even seeing some of the NDP candidates for the provincial party, because former Premier Rachel Notley is stepping down. They're having an NDP leadership race. Some of the NDP candidates have come out and said, yeah, we need to scrap the federal carbon tax. Now, there's a lot of asterisks around there. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how they feel about a provincial one. I don't know what kind of terminology they're going to use. But even to have them saying out loud with their face, we're opposed to the carbon tax is huge. So this is a big game changer. And so again, it would be really nice to be able to just full throat approve of what the Alberta government is doing when their rallying cry against the federal carbon tax. But it's really tough to do so when just cost-wise, straight up math, we are now paying higher taxes at the fuel pump.
I have to take a bit of an indulgence here, Kris. Did you listen to the song I sent you?
I haven't had had a chance to yet. So,
Okay, we're gonna do this now. So,
Okay.
I admittedly I sent it, and Kris thought I was like Kris thought I'd been hacked and was like phishing her or something.
I did. I totally thought you'd been hacked. I'm like,
and then I looked because I was like, she always responds to me within like 5 seconds. Then I went and looked at the email. Like, oh yeah, this looks like a spam email. It's like, hey, check out this AI generated song. Anyway, so last week I discovered this AI song machine. Okay. And I was just having some fun with it. And Kris has just been such a wonderful fixture on the show. We thought she needed her own theme song for the show. Let's roll it.
In the land of oil and cattle, there's a woman named Kris Sims.
Oh my
She's
God.
got a fire in her heart, fighting against the government's whims. She ain't afraid to speak her mind, stand up for what's right. A voice for the common folk. She's a beacon shining bright. She's crusading against taxes.
You are.
For the hard-working folks out there. She believes in limited government, in freedom she declares. With a heart full of passion and a spirit unyielding, Kris Sims is the voice. Her message is appealing. Oh,
there we go.
Sims, you're the voice of Alberta in the world politics.
All right, we can end it there, Sean.
That is so nice. Thank you.
Kris
so
Sims,
much.
you're the voice of Alberta, and we're so glad you spend a little bit of your week with us. Keep up the great work. Keep up the fight. This is what happens when you don't open my emails. You miss out on...
I suddenly love something AI made. This is wonderful. You know, there's always room for growth. That's really touching. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
But
so my wife has very little tolerance for AI generated anything. So like she was like, "Stop sending me your freaking songs." So I'm like, "All right, well my I guess I just have to share them with the audience now." I think I'm done for now. I might make a couple of more. Sean was upset that he didn't have one, so I had a nice jazz song written about him needing to back off and let me do the AI songs. It actually slapped, as the kids say these days. So, all right, well, Kris Sims, we will talk to you next week. Thank you so much for coming on, as always.
That was lit. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for listening to The Andrew Lawton Show. Support the program by donating to True North at www.tnc.news.